built the company from zero revenue to a valuation of over $3 million. My product to speak for me. Uh, Buying a house or building a house in this economy, it's extremely tough.
We are back with another special episode of Tech Talk 360, unveiling one bite at a time. Today, we have one of our very special guests, Jehan Wijesinghe, a tech entrepreneur and a product development specialist, and also a startup coach. But very interestingly, he is also a TEDx speaker. Hi, Jehan. How are you doing today?
Hi, Russell. Thank you so much for having me here with your podcast. So looking forward to a good conversation with you.
My pleasure. So let's just start off. I just want to know who is Jehan Wijesinghe.
Yeah, it's a very deep question. How can I put it? I am a person that absolutely hates to be stagnated in one place. I think that's the best definition of me. I constantly strive to do something new, solve some problem, make someone's life better, and make my life harder while doing that. For me, my constant driving force is to achieve more and more, and my number one passion is entrepreneurship. I use entrepreneurship as a vehicle for me to fulfill my passions and my how do I say, what I want to achieve in life. That's a little bit about me.
Amazing. So, something that is really important these days to the youth is entrepreneurship. So, if I just when I just research about you and your profile on LinkedIn, let's just start off when you started your journey from being a software engineer to becoming a tech entrepreneur and a startup coach. Startup coaching is something that is really happening around the world these days. What do you actually say when how did you start up the journey and how is it been so far?
Yeah. So as you said, I started my career as a software engineer. So unlike a lot of other entrepreneurs of my generation, I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I didn't know what the word entrepreneur was, but I come from a very middle class family, and my parents had quite a hard time, raising me because of financial difficulties. So what I saw was that how financial success could bring a lot of wealth into a family, not just cash wealth, but in terms of everything that you can buy, experience, and whatnot. So I really wanted to get financial independence at a very young age. So I saw entrepreneurship as a vehicle, or rather, building a business as a vehicle for me to get there. So from young ages, my role models were a lot of tech entrepreneurs, like Mark Zuckerberg, to the likes of Bill Gates. Elon Musk wasn't there yet at that time. I mean, he was there, but he was not in the limelight of Tesla. But yeah, so my role models were a lot of tech entrepreneurs, and so I knew that I had to start a tech company, right? So as a child so I started coding at a very young age, because I saw that by learning engineering, because software engineering is one of those amazing fields that you only need a laptop and internet connection to create something, and of course knowledge is readily available anywhere in the internet. So I saw that software development is a good way for me to get into tech entrepreneurship. So I
Yeah.
learned how to code since I was like 12. I self-taught myself. I became a Java certified developer when I was 16. And then I went into university at IIT, did 2 years there, first 2 years. And then in my third year, I went into my internship at a company called 99X. And at 99X, that's where I realized that I love to code, and but at the same time, I don't want to be stagnant sitting and coding for the rest of my life. So I told my mentor at that time, look, I don't want to get into a team and work there for tens or many years. Put me into something new. And he got me into a team that does internal innovation products, meaning they would come up with products for the internal purposes as well as for commercialization. And that's where I started my career. And shortly afterwards, at that point, I realized that being an employee is not for me. I wanted to do something new, wanted something of my own. And with that, I met my first business partner. He's the current CEO of 99x. At that time, he was the CTO, and he saw that I was very passionate about entrepreneurship, and he too was very passionate in creating something. And that's when we got together, and we created our first business, IgniterSpace. I was 19 at that time, and the company was very successful within a very short period of time, maybe a year. We were profitable, and we were growing very fast. And I was there CEO for 5 years, built the company from zero revenue to a valuation of over $3 million. That was about 2 years ago, and I stepped down from my CEO role, and I went into tech entrepreneurship for some time. So I don't want to tell my entire story, but what I want to highlight here is the fact that when I was building IgniterSpace, I had no business skills. Meaning, I was an engineer, right? So I knew how to develop products. So IgniterSpace is not really a tech product; it's more of a robotics school for kids that we teach kids how to innovate. So I was really good at creating the curriculum or creating the tech related aspects. I created all the different systems required, from stock control to attendance and everything, but I lacked business skills. HR, how to manage people, how to run operations, how to optimize your finances, right? The legal barriers, from everything from procurement to manufacturing. I didn't have any of this knowledge. So I learned it the hard way, did it myself, and learned. But some say that the best way to learn is by experimentation and failing. Yeah, that's completely true. I agree. But you also have to realize that when you fail, you lose opportunity, right? And it's extremely tough to be an entrepreneur and to survive. As to start as an entrepreneur, not very, but to be successful as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. So, and when I stepped down from Ignite Space, I realized that, look, I need to do something that I would help new entrepreneurs like me when I started, to give them a better chance of success by teaching them that these are the challenges you will face. This is how you need to prepare. Teach them how to be a CEO, from lessons I learned by not really a CEO, rather a startup founder, from lessons I learned myself from my failure. So that's when I started Unicorn Factory. With Unicorn Factory, the community grew to thousands and thousands of startup enthusiasts, and it eventually led me into mentoring hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs around the country. So that's how I got into that, because I'm still very very passionate in entrepreneurship, and I really like to help other entrepreneurs to develop themselves, because for two things. I am a big time capitalist, yes. I love financial success, meaning I love money, of course. But at the same time, I know that as an economy, you can't succeed alone. You need all the industries to develop. You need supporting industries working together. So you need your economy to develop. So for you to succeed as a businessman or an entrepreneur yourself, you need people around you to succeed as well. So that sort of mentality, not just me, but there's a lot of founders I know that have that same mentality of, we need to support the ecosystem, we need to help the newcomers, we need to help whoever needs advice, and that's readily available in our ecosystem, which is a great thing. I'm just sorry, and it's really readily available in our ecosystem, and I'm just doing my part to it.
I mean, so I think you just touched upon my next two questions, which is regarding, Igniter Space and also Unicorn Factory. But you just touched on what Igniter Space is and what actually Unicorn Factory is. So let me just get into the Igniter Space question. Is that when you were the startup founder and when you were handling the startup, what I think you touched upon some challenges, maybe some challenges that you faced and how actually you overcame the challenges. I think that there are some challenges that you
Oh
faced.
yeah. Oh yeah, big time. I mean, challenges every day, right? I mean, different ways when you're running a business. But I'll highlight upon some key challenges that led me to my decisions in terms of the rest of the ventures I did. The biggest challenge is I was a 19-year-old naive little boy, and in a world where, which is, or rather, in an industry which is predominantly led by veterans. Education is an industry which is run by very experienced educators. You take schools, You take the ministries or the regulatory bodies that control education is run by very very elderly and very very senior individuals. So now a 19-year-old boy who's now the CEO of this campus, small startup, going to these guys and saying, "Look, the way you've been educating kids is wrong. This is how you need to do it." So that was the biggest challenge. I mean, getting people to take me seriously. But I did something that which I'm really proud of still, because I let my product to speak for me. I didn't go and try to build my personal brand initially. As an entrepreneur, personal brand is absolutely important. But what I did first is, I even before I built the brand of my company, I built my product and built success stories around that product. There's a lot of a big mistake that founders do is they create the fluff, but they don't really have it. So that's a big lesson that I kind of share with all my mentees. So first I created the actual product, validated it, got it into customers, got the testimonials. Now when I go to these challenging individuals to say, look, you need to put this into your school curriculum, or you need to provide us these resources, I come with depth. I don't come with a concept or something that I've come up in my head. This is something that is validated and there is, some gravity behind it. So that's the first challenge and how I overcame. The second is also very related to that. That is being a 19-year-old CEO in a lot of corporate forums, getting people to take you seriously, right? Because as I was building the brand, I required partnerships. I required, we were completely bootstrapped, so we didn't have any investment. However, we had several, people who provided us with short-term loans and lots of credit capabilities. So now, how do I go and make myself serious to them? So again, I followed the same lesson as before. Let my product and my brand speak for itself. So I mean, I would say that is one of the biggest challenges. And again, related to the same point, the mistakes I made thinking back was also due to my naivety. Meaning, as a very young person who's not, because I never worked as an employee. I was in 99X as an intern for just 2 years, just a year. That's the only type of work I've actually done. So I haven't gotten that discipline around, working for someone, following instructions. So I didn't have that, and I wouldn't say that's a good thing. So that naivety, with that naivety, lots of mistakes were made. So that's what I always say. Like, it's very challenging when you become an entrepreneur first time right off school. You need to build a little bit of discipline. You need to build a little bit of maturity, which is why we see more than the first venture, the second or third venture is what is successful.
Yes.
Luckily for me, the first venture was successful because I learned from my lessons, and also not, I had to give a credit because I had a very senior partner. My partner was very much senior to me, so he was my mentor. But yeah, I mean, this is, I would say, highlighting some of the challenges as a young founder that I had. Apart that, obvious challenges were there: finding the right customers, operational issues that you get, staff, finding staff. These are all, challenges that are day to day. But I wanted to highlight that specific challenge that resonates to me.
Amazing. Some amazing points that we can touch upon, and we can, go from there. So if I just ask you, so since you have, the idea of what are the trending products nowadays, pretty much the young growing minds are really into this product, new products and also innovation, and how these they can make strategies to, to market these products. Thing? Is it like the innovation, or is it the strategy? How do they get that perfect product from to create a successful product?
So it's a really good question, Russell. Now here's the thing: when you're designing a product, the first thing you need to look at is, what is the problem that I'm solving? Right? It's a very simple question. You need to first look at the fundamental problem, right? And then you need to look at who are the stakeholders that is experiencing this problem, and why are they experiencing this problem? What is the environment like? The reason why I'm saying that is, big mistake that first time founders do is they are solution oriented. Meaning they would suddenly say, look, I'm going to come up with a platform that people can order medicine online. Or they're going to say, I'm going to come up with a app where people at home can cook food and get stuff delivered. Now these are concepts, yes, good, but why are you creating that? What is the fundamental problem? Because in most cases the hard part is not building the product, right? If you can
So
code,
the
yeah, if you can code, there's enough frameworks and default templates that you can download, create the app. It's not hard to actually create it. But what's
yeah,
hard is, as you said, to sell the product, to get it to consumers, right? In most cases, products, not in most cases, every time, not only anything fails because you're unable to sell it, right? You have to be able to sell the product. So if selling a tech product, you need to understand what market you are in, what the market size is, right? But before you get to that, as I said, the fundamental is there a problem that this solution addresses, right? So don't think solution oriented. I would always say to think problem oriented. Identify the
yes,
problem, figure out who the stakeholders are, figure out why they're having that problem, because it could be anything. You may be coming up with a B2C solution where your product is going to the hands of individuals, or it could be a B2B solution. Your product is going to be used by companies or other organizations. For example, you're coming up with a recruitment platform, an app that helps people to hire others. Then you look at, okay, what is the problem that companies are facing? Okay, they are unable to get quality CVs, and it's expensive to spend on headhunters. Okay, now then we look at, okay, what is the existing solutions, right? What are the limitations of this existing solution? So you do your research, then you look at the industry, right? So there is a whole process of it. But the simple piece of advice is that when you if you're thinking of starting a tech product, be very very cautious in terms of the actual concept. There's a lot of validation required before you actually go ahead and build it. And even when you're building it, I would advise to build it in phases. MVP first, and keep developing it. Yeah.
maybe. So let's just take a step away from Ignite Space and all the product side. Let's just share about, this is something that I really wanted to speak about, and I really wanted to know from you is that what is the story behind Unicorn Factory? And I'm also looking for a mentor these days. I just have a startup idea as well. I think I'm in the perfect place as well. So let's just
Yeah,
share
absolutely.
this story behind Unicorn Factory.
Yeah. So with as I was exiting IgniterSpace, why I did that was multiple reasons. But I started. I'm sure you have questions on that in the future. But just to make that connection, I went into creating my own tech company, and we'll talk about it later. Right after I stepped out of IgniterSpace, but what I wanted, one of my burning issues that I had, or not rather issue, something that I really wanted to do was I wanted to I wanted to create something, find a way to help new entrepreneurs to avoid and or pass around the uh, obstacles that I had or the mistakes I made. I wanted the youth or the new entrepreneurs to have it a easier way, right? Give them a little bit of a boost in terms of their startup success. So that's it was a very emotional reason for me to start in Unicorn Factory, right? It was extremely personal to me. I've been very passionate in teaching from when I was a kid, basically from school days to campus days. I used to organize all those campus cook years. So I've been very much I love to educate and share my knowledge with others. So Unicorn Factory was that was a whole concept behind it. And I've been working with the US Embassy for close to a decade now, in Colombo, and these guys have supported me in a lot of my ventures. They were very gracious to provide a very good grant for me to start Unicorn Factory, and we had lots of support from the ecosystem. And that's how I started. Initially, we started it as a talk show where I brought in experienced entrepreneurs. I looked at 24 areas that I had challenges in. Everything from, let's say, properly analyzing my finances, or identifying the legalities of contractual obligations, or maybe how to properly identify a go to market strategy. I think things those are the areas that I always learned. I struggled a lot. I identified those areas, and then I looked at what are the areas from that which can be generalized to apply to others, which others can apply, other entrepreneurs. And then I got 2018, actually 18 entrepreneurs from those specific area. Let's say my topic is to speak about go to market. I will bring an entrepreneur who has good knowledge in that. I want to speak about financial aspect. I bring someone who has knowledge in that. And it was basically a interview series. That's how it started. And then I went to create another video series called Fundamentals of Starting a Business. That series had topics starting from the basics of how to come up with an idea, what are the areas you need to look at when coming up with an idea, how to validate the idea. It was step by step until we've done hundreds of videos, so many steps on how to create. Then we created another series which is a podcast, where we basically take a topic and we just hash out. Me and I found another person for Unicorn Factory as we went along, and I got him to become a co-founder, Shavin. So we do podcasts. Unfortunately, we haven't done one in such a long time because again we are both very busy. So that's how that was a content side. But then what we realized was that Unicorn Factory was still very one way, meaning we were speaking, others were, the audience is listening. The only interaction we would have is via comments, or sometimes occasionally they would reach out to us. Then we decided, look, we need to go to the next step, which is we need to make this bidirectional. Well, let's start a boot camp. So basically, what we did was, again, we got a grant. Luckily, we called out for applications. We selected 30 entrepreneurs, and these were early stage or entrepreneurs in the idea stage. And we had a comprehensive 4 or 6 month boot camp where we taught them from scratch, and it was physically done. First cohort was online. It was just after COVID. Second cohort we did it physically. And so I have I'll get to that. So that we had a lot of interaction physically and directly with these enthusiasts. Out of that, we did two cohorts. Over, I would say, 60-70 entrepreneurs were a part of that. And we had a demo day. People came and presented their ideas. Through that program, we even invested in few companies, helped them grow. Lots of success stories are there to this date. That's the phase two of Unicorn Factory. And it has evolved actually afterwards. I don't think you have found that on my LinkedIn, but we ran out of funding. Obviously, that was something that we knew was happening. We can't do this for free forever. So what then we decided was we need to keep this initiative going. We cannot stop this. So what we decided was we will now run only the content portion via Unicorn Factory. So Unicorn Factory is still functioning. We have the content portion of it. And then for the bidirectional or the learning component, we'll come up with a new brand. And that's when Shavin and I created something called Nest Sri Lanka. Nest is a platform for early stage entrepreneurs. For them, we gave them a 4 month program. We call that Nest Nurture program. You have to be early stage as an entrepreneur, meaning you have to have your company at least at the ideas, not even late idea stage, when you have to have your concept developed. And we preferably get entrepreneurs who have a running business early stage, and then we basically take them through a 4 month boot camp to really help them grow. So it's not a course. I'm sorry if I use that word. It's not a course. My good friend Kanishka Veeramundu, the director of owner of Pay Media, he's given us his space at Square Hub. So he's given us the boardroom. On Saturdays we meet. We still do this program. On Saturdays we meet. Everyone sits in the boardroom in the meeting, in the meeting room, and then we discuss. We discuss each other's strategies. We create collaborations with each other. So I have a kombucha company now. I have in the program. There's an ed tech company. There is a guy who manufactures school bags. So many different entrepreneurs in that particular company. So that's right. That's a paid program, very nominal though. So that's Nest. So that's how we keep it going. So with Nest, it's a private company, meaning it's a for-profit company. Unicorn Factory is not for profit. So with Nest, we will funnel in some of our profits to keep Unicorn Factory running. So that's how Unicorn Factory started and the current stage of it too.
Amazing. So I'll just, I think you gave a hint on the next question that's coming up. So it's about product Tavern. Did I spell it right?
Correct, exactly.
Amazing. So, uh, how does this combine your knowledge in the product development for the past 10 years, and what change
Absolutely.
does this bring in, and what is the
So,
vision of it?
so Tavern was, I combined two things I love: product and tavern. Being at the tavern, so product tavern, that's the name. I started product tavern in, I can't remember, but I think 2 years before I exited IgniterSpace, because my
Yeah,
core
on
passion.
LinkedIn it says 2020
Ah, there you
in
go. Yeah,
LinkedIn. Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. So essentially, what my passion was, I mean, I was running an education company, a robotics company, yes, but as a child, I'm a developer. So my roots are still in tech. I really love tech. So I wanted to create my own tech product. To be very honest, I had not done that until that point. So I, even during my campus days while running IgniterSpace, I used to have a drive, Google Drive. I still have that drive. I occasionally go to that, and that I would just put up ideas I have. Some are not even in the idea stage. Some are in the actual concept develop stage. Like I create the prototypes of wireframes of it. Are there. I come up with concepts for travel apps, like ride sharing apps, discount card platforms, and lots of stuff, but I actually couldn't execute any of those. So, but in that process, I did a lot of consultancy work for lots of individuals, technology companies, and I did a lot of stuff for them, meaning from everything from developing a product concept to doing the market research, up with the user journeys. So I kept my passion going by doing a lots of consultancy like that, and in that process I learned a lot about how to. So one of the I'll give you a story, like one of the success stories. That's actually how Practa one actually started. Now I figured out that I have the skill set for that. One of my friends brought a friend of his that lives in Australia, Sri Lankan, and he told me, look, I have this concept. There's a lots of I have a boat in Sydney Harbor, but I don't put this boat out every day. I only go use it like once or twice a month, and the rest of the time it's in the harbor. So shall we do come up with some concept so that I can take maximum use of just not my boat but all the other people who had the same problem. Then we came up with this concept of boat sharing. It's not a novel concept, it was already existing, but not in Sydney. So we came up with that concept, developed the concept. It was a platform, and the differences using this product's name, it's called the Boaters Club. We created the branding and all of that too. The Boaters Club, you can list your boat, create an experience out of it, and put it online in and we so we created the concept, the UI UX, the branding. We actually developed a mobile app and a web app, and I actually did it with my brother at that time, because my brother became a software engineer, and he followed the career path, and he's a very successful senior engineer now, my younger brother. We got together and did it, right? I mean, there was no company at that time. I was running IgniterSpace, and so Voters Club. Then we also took the marketing portion, meaning we hired some people to on freelance basis to do the marketing, meaning acquire the suppliers. We got more than 100 suppliers all around Sri Lanka. Even to this date, if I travel down south to anywhere near a lake or ocean, I know the operators of Benthor of Waters. We have hundreds of them. So that was really a passion project. We made money off that project, but it was really fun. Then it came to me that, look, I did the whole iteration from the concept development to MVP, developing the actual thing, doing the marketing, putting it out, building the operation. So this is the product life cycle. So then I created my own version of taking a concept to market, sort of a concept, and then created this idea for product Tavern and put it out. And since today I mean, it's still a very 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 much of a side hustle, I would say, but we've helped. I can't expose the names because we've worked with lots of very successful tech products in Sri Lanka. Like, I can't, unfortunately, bound by NDAs not to share them, but everything from recruitment tech to advertising tech, and lots of others we can unfortunately I can't share. But not just Sri Lanka, but we worked in products in the US, in Germany. It was very interesting working in Germany, in Australia, as I said. So yeah, that's been the story, and that's how I got into technology. And with those roots, then I moved into Surge later on, and I took the engineering team from 15 people to 150. So so I learned to be a product manager, learned to be, learned about product management, not by being a business analyst, or by being even a software engineer. I was a software engineer for just a year. That's it. I mean, I do have a degree in that, but I can't code. Is the reality. So product management is something I learned from practice.
Amazing. That's some quite inspirational story, and there's so much to get out of it. So I think just we have just come to the end, and there's some few questions that I just ask almost every episode. Is that what? So we have been talking about young entrepreneurs, the youth, and what fuels the youth. So what is that one thing, if you could say to the aspiring entrepreneurs and product managers based on your experiences so far, if they want to get into this space, uh, where do they start actually, their dream job? Because these days these niche markets, they have a huge payroll, and they can just hit there. So where do they actually start, and what advice would you give them?
Well, I would break it into two parts. If you're going to become a product manager versus come up with a tech product of yourself, but for both, what you need is a really good understanding of your consumer. Let's say, I mean, either it is, let's say you're going to become a product manager at a product company, right? So that company will have its own product, or it could be a service company who is building products for others. Anyway, whatever the case, a product manager is someone who understands the product more than anyone else. And by understanding the product, that means understanding the customer really, really well. So you need to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and understand what their pain points are. Let's assume you are joining a product manager as a product manager to a company which is already established, which has a product already running. Now, let's say recently I started an engagement with a company, a product company, which has been building its product for over a decade, more than a decade. So for you to really get accustomed to the product, it could take time, right? Because it has a big suite, and take your time to understand the product, but don't study the features. What you need to study is why these features exist, right? You need to understand what are the customer pain points we're solving with these features. Because look, how a product manager is different from a business analyst is that a product manager doesn't just, now in innovation, guys, there's something called vertical innovation and horizontal innovation, right? Basically, what you say horizontal innovation is making the same thing better and better. Let's say we have a car, we made it faster, we had lighter wheels, and then we came up with a very vertical innovation, which is, let's say, um, a different mode of transport. I can't get an example right now, but that's vertical innovation, a different way to solve the problem, maybe, right? So BS, like, I'm not comparing BS to product manager, but what I'm saying is, traditionally, if you look at the role of someone who is controlling the requirements of the product, you would tend to think about the features, how you can make this feature better, or plug in another feature. But rather, you need to be thinking the other way. You need to be thinking, what are the problems that they're having, even with using these current features, and how do you make it better? Sometimes we try to tailgate, meaning we look at a competitor and we try to just mimic the features that the competitor has.
Yeah,
So sometimes it works. I'm not saying it won't, but you need to know why every feature exists. So this is the advice for both those two categories, but especially if you're going to be a tech entrepreneur, man, you need to take some time to learn about product management, right? And the biggest advice is, don't just jump and create that product. Do a lot of research. You have to understand your consumers problems, as I said, I keep saying that, and do a lots of validation, and go phase by phase. I've seen product companies, product startups developing the product for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, no revenue. Even the revenue is very small. Now you can do that if you have a lot of cash to burn. A or B, you do it as a high side hustle. You just develop a little part of the product. You just don't put it to market. That's a very wrong way of doing it. When you come up with a concept, find out the MVP, the minimum viable product, the minimum solution that you can ship out. Develop it, put it out, see how the consumers react, how the customers engage with that version. Get that feedback, incorporate it, put it back. So go in multiple rounds of iterations of execution, and remember that very, very important saying that failing fast means failing cheap, right? So failing fast is cheaper than failing later on. So that's why you need to go iterative. Yeah, so I think that those are my pieces of advice that I would say to aspiring product managers and product entrepreneurs.
Amazing. So, Jahan, the last question I almost ask in every episode is that we connect all the questions that I asked in Sri Lanka. And maybe this is something controversial, but people, there's skill migration happening. People live abroad, to find better opportunities. And what do we actually? There is pretty much very talented people in Sri Lanka, and then sometimes companies don't take use of them, but then they go and we lose much potential on them. But we do have much capacity here. What do you say to retain this talent? What is that thing that you have to tell for Sri Lanka and the youth of Sri Lanka?
I love that question, and everybody asks me lots of time why are you still here. The reason why I'm still here is because there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a ton of opportunity in this country. Look at the products that we have. We don't have much, right? But there's lots of potential for growth here. What you need to stop is to get your mindset should change from that complaining mindset into more of a self-driven mindset. Meaning, as youth, if you try to blame someone else for the way, I mean, there's lots of people to blame because of for the inflation or the really bad economy we have. There's a lot of people to blame, but what are we going to get by complaining? I am a firm, I wouldn't say I'm a pessimist, but I'm not an optimist either. I'm a realist. So for me, I don't really see a lot of development in this country for the next 10 years. That's the reality of it. But as a capitalist, there's a lot of things that you can get. You can get lots of advantages. I'm not saying in a bad way. I am a social entrepreneur too. If you look at it, most of the companies are created are social enterprises, but you have lots of opportunity for you to get out it. However, if you made up your mind to leave, unfortunately, I'm not going to hold your hand and beg you to go, beg you to stay. That's not how I am, and that's not how a lot of our companies also. Because the deal is, when you made up your mind to do that, it's really hard to turn back, and it's very hard to. It's very, I would say, situational as well, right? I mean, not just based on the opportunities and the circumstances, right? Let's say I have a stable income, I have a house to stay, example, I have my own vehicle, let's say my family is stable. So look, for me, I don't really have much to achieve, so okay, fine, I can stay here, I can develop myself, right? Let's take a different person. You studied because of your parents, you were fortunate enough for your parents to pay for your education, you live with them, you don't have a lot of expenses, you have a job. Again, you can build yourself here in Sri Lanka, right? You have that supporting system. But then let's take another person, someone who had to fight through school, then had to go to a government university, not just government, right? I'm sorry for taking that. Maybe they paid for their own education in a private university, they got a job at first time, and now they're getting a salary, but now it's very tough for them to take any decision like buying a car or buying a house or building a house. In this economy, it's extremely tough, right? My car was worth X, now I bought it for X, now it's almost 3X. It's just stupid for someone who's going to buy it for the first time. So that sort of person, it's very hard for me to tell them wait and try, because I know for a fact that our economy is not going to develop over the next 10 years. So for someone, so it's very, very when I advise, when someone asks me, should I stay in this country, should I go, I can't give a one size fits all answer. It's just to be based on your circumstances. But especially if you're an entrepreneur, I could say I'll give some advice that people can apply. Product management, the field is opening up quite a lot in Sri Lanka. I mean, 2 years ago versus now, there's a big development. The role of BA is evolving a lot into product management. So there's lots of opportunities, lots of remote jobs available in product management. B, tech entrepreneurship is very tough in Sri Lanka because the market is so small. If you are to be a tech entrepreneur, it has to be a solution that can be adopted by a lot. It's either, if it's B2C, it has to be a very, very day to day sort of an application, like Pick Me, for example. If it's B2B, then it should be a high value B2B, meaning you should be able to charge $20 a user. It's not easy in Sri Lanka. So if you are going to be a tech entrepreneur, you can build from Sri Lanka, but you have to always think selling it in a different market. So yeah, I mean, skill migration, that's a problem that we are all facing. It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
I mean, I would we can't avoid it, but we have to face the facts, and we take the maximum use of what we can.
With that, Jehan, thank you so much for joining in the podcast today. It's been very inspirational, and I hope there's a lot that I took, and I hope the viewers there's a lot to take from this episode as well. And let's just share some final words on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very interesting conversation for sure. I love people who have very similar mindsets to me, and speaking to you, I think we can have a very lengthy conversation together. And as I said, I'm not a one-way sort of a person. So if you do have any queries, anyone of the audience, you connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a message, or on any of the socials. I'm pretty active. Um, yeah. So thank you so much for having me here today. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation.
Have a great day, Jehan. Hope you have the best. All the
All right.
best. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.